What's up, y'all? Will here from Team HuntStand, and on today's video, I'm going to show y'all step for step how to build your own custom arrow to chase after any big game animal in North America. Just built out, brand new Matthews Phase 4 33. That's going to be my go-to hunting rig this year. I have narrowed myself down to Bloodsport's Evidence Arrow. It's down to 1,000th straightness. It's a 300 spine arrow. It's 11.7 GPI grains per inch. And it's a great arrow that's going to give you a good weight for a lot of you guys that average out there that are going to run 70 pounds and in that 28 to 29 inch draw length. So what I did to tinker with these arrows, I went and just picked up a 6-pack of these and just shot them in the bow. You know, just got comfortable with them, put them through different distance tests, put them through the chronograph, and just shot them and narrowed it down that I like these arrows. They fly good for me, and this is what I'm going to stick to for 2023. One of the unique things about this arrow that kind of stood out to me was they've got this white coloring that's wrapped around the arrow. It's just a super thin layer, and the thought process behind this is when you get that full pass through on an animal, it's going to get the blood on the arrow shaft. So as you recover it and you look at that blood, you can tell from the coloration of where you hit. So it's a pretty cool feature. I like that. Doesn't add any weight to the arrow shaft because I know there's a lot of y'all out there that are concerned about FOC and how that may affect it. It doesn't at all. The other cool thing that I love on arrows is this RLC system that they have up front. So the RLC system stands for Reliable Outsert Components, and it's nice because you just have a simple post that runs in through the front of your arrow shaft, and then you have the outsert that protects the end of it. And the nice thing about that is if you do accidentally miss your target, or you get all the way through blocks after they've been shot through too much, or your 3D target and happens to hit a rock or it happens to hit a tree behind, and it bends that up, you can take that off and put a new one on. The full purpose behind the RLC system is to protect the end of your shaft. So if you do run into instances where you miss a target and it damages the front end of that, you can replace that easily. First things first, this is what a fully rigged arrow looks like that I build out. I've got the standard ROC component on the arrow, and then the thing that I took from bare shaft, I like to run an AAE hybrid 26 vane in a 4-fletch configuration. That's just a vane configuration that's always run great for me. I love them, and especially when it comes to shooting fixed blades, which I'm going to be doing this year, it helps steer those broadheads, especially when you start getting out to further distances. It really helps out in steering that. So this is just my go-to combo. I love to run it. It's a great micro diameter arrow. So we're going to go get on the saw, and I'm going to get these things cut to length. I'm going to show y'all how to do that. An important step to determining your arrow length, you always want to measure from the seat of the nock on your arrow. And the best way to get that arrow length, in my opinion, is you have to do it with your bow. You need to get your bow set to the proper draw length that's comfortable for you. And once you get back to full draw, it's best to have somebody standing there right next to you. As you have your arrow shaft in the bow, have them stand right next to you to where they can take a silver Sharpie marker and mark the length that you like. Now, obviously, you don't want to have too short of an arrow that's just, it's going to be sitting on your rest. You want to give your fingers enough clearance, but the shortest you can make your arrow, the best. And so a lot of times you're going to find that happy medium where the very end of your arrow sits about the middle towards the end of your riser. I already have an arrow here for reference, and it's important to make sure that you cut your arrows all the same length, because if you don't, you're gonna have inconsistent weights, which is gonna cause you to shoot inconsistently out on the range and get you frustrated. So make sure you measure and cut your arrows all the same length. I'm over here at my saw bench, and this is an arrow saw that is inexpensive. You can get it for your shop, you can get it off Amazon, and it's a great tool to have if you want to do this yourself. But I want to show you how to cut your arrows correctly, because I've seen a lot of times where guys cut these things and they'll get a slanted cut on the end of that arrow. It won't be straight, and you can run into a lot of issues by doing that. So the best way to get your arrows cut, set the nock down into the saddle of where you have your measurement set to, and then as you begin to push the arrow shaft into the blade on your saw, you want to make sure that you're spinning this arrow. As you do that, that's going to give you a nice cut, and you just keep doing that till you get fully through the arrow shaft, and that should give you a nice straight cut. We got them all cut to length now. So the next step that I like to do, you can do this yourself if you want, it isn't necessary, but I do like to just get a little bit smoother edge on the end of the shaft by taking a little sandstone like this, just set it down on a flat surface, and then just bring that arrow shaft and just quickly spin it a couple times. And the reason I do that, it just helps knock off any extra little carbon shavings that might be there or any rugged, rough edges, and it just helps smooth things out and makes it a lot easier when you are putting the RLC system on. Now that I've got my arrow shafts cut to the length, we've got really good consistencies, all the same length across these arrows, I'm going to put the RLC system on now. And I want to show you how to do that because this is another key thing whenever it comes to gluing in components, because how much glue you use can affect the weight of your arrows. If you geek out about this stuff, then you want to remain consistent across everything you do, because building arrows is all about consistency, because the more consistent arrow weight you have, arrow length, and everything you do with this build means that you're going to have better flying arrows and get better groups out on the range or in the field. So the best thing to do, you want to find yourself a good insert glue. I like this insert weld, and you want to put just a little bit of glue. A little bit goes a long way. So what I like to do is I like to get my stream of glue going, just wrap it around. So I've got a nice bead that covers just the end of my insert. Bring the arrow shaft on top, and I just begin to twist it on. And when I get about halfway and run out of space, that's when I'll come over to my paper towel that I have set, push it all the way down. And then if you got any excess glue, take it off. So then once you have that set, let that glue dry for a little bit longer. Put your outsert on, screw it on, and there you go. Now that we've got the ROC system glued into the front end of the arrow shaft, I want to show you how I set up my 4-vane configuration with the AAE Hybrid 26 vanes. I like to set it up on a Bitzenberg jig, right helical. And so we're just going to get right into it and show you how to do this so you can do it consistently. So to get started, I love AAE's Max Bond glue. In this, again, same situation as the insert system. You want to put a nice bead of glue right down the center of the vane. Try not to get up on the lips or up on the edges, because that's when you're going to start to deal with runoff, and you could potentially run into issues with getting your clamp off your vane. And this is where I use my pinky finger to spread it evenly. And then that way you got a nice surface covering there of the glue. You can wipe off that excess glue on the napkin from your finger, and less glue is more. That's when you'll take it straight into your arrow shaft, and you want to come in at an angle, press down, and I usually count about 10 in my head per vane. Then you can take that clamp off. And so far, we got just a little bit of glue runoff there, and that's where I may have done just a little more, but you can just take that Q-tip and come in and just clean it up a little bit. The way these Bitzenberg jigs are set, when you screw down that 90-degree set screw, it knows and has a mechanism inside that you can hear it click when you know you've turned far enough. So I'm turning, got the click, that tells me I have it in position to place my next vane. All right, now that we got our vanes on, everything's glued in, I like to put a little bit of that string wax on the threads of my field points. And what that does, it just helps keep the field point locked in. A lot of times they rattle loose after they get a few shots in them, so just one of those things you can do to mitigate any noise and just kind of keep them in there tight and shooting straight. So the final part to this custom arrow build, the last thing I like to do is check my arrow weights. This is going to tell me how consistent I was with my glue, whether or not the vanes are the same, and everything that I did building up to this. And what that will also tell me is if I have anything that's way off from the average of the group or the bulk of the group, then I can set that arrow off to the side, because otherwise it could either be flying high, flying low, depending on whether it's lighter or heavier than the rest of my arrows. So this is where having a good scale comes in handy, and we're just going to check weight on these boogers. So we got about a 518 grain arrow, and that personally has been a great setup for me. Some of you might think it's too heavy. There's other guys out there that might think it's too light, but for me, That's a great weight, an ideal weight for your arrows across the board for an average guy who's pulling 70 pounds, 28 to 29 draw length. 480 to 500 is a great weight. I like just a touch heavier with that 4-vein configuration. It's what works great for me. It may work great for you, it may not work great for you. So that's where I just encourage you to tinker, find out what works best for you, and build out an arrow like this that you can go chase after any big game animal in North America.